A shocking leak claims Ferrari are sabotaging Lewis Hamilton's car to force him out. Orders from Frederic Vasseur allegedly send every upgrade only to Charles Leclerc, with the excuse that he's been at the team longer. Hamilton's car? Left untouched, slower, and deliberately behind. Stay until the end, because the truth behind this scandal will blow your mind. Subscribe to stay informed about the latest Formula One news. What had been whispered in hushed tones in the corridors of the paddock, traded as gossip between journalists and murmured among rival engineers, has now erupted into the kind of scandal that threatens to stain the reputation of one of Formula One's most iconic teams forever. The shocking revelation spreading like wildfire is that Ferrari, the team synonymous with prestige, passion, and tradition, are allegedly undermining their own star signing from within, sabotaging Lewis Hamilton's campaign not by accident, not by incompetence, but through deliberate and calculated manipulation. The whispers have grown louder, the smoke has turned into fire, and according to the leaks that have surfaced, the betrayal is not only systematic but orchestrated at the very highest levels of Ferrari's hierarchy. The allegations paint a damning picture. It is being claimed by multiple insiders that team principal Frederic Vasseur himself has been issuing direct orders to senior staff, instructing them to starve Hamilton's side of the garage of resources, technology, and attention. Meetings that should have been collaborative have reportedly turned into exercises in exclusion, with Charles Leclerc's engineers allegedly given priority on upgrades, experimental parts, and the most advanced data packages, while Hamilton is left relying on equipment weeks behind schedule. When new components are produced, insiders suggest that Leclerc receives the refined versions, while Hamilton is supplied with early prototypes or deliberately withheld from the latest developments under the guise of testing equality. The official line presented to the press has been polished, careful, and repeated often enough to sound plausible. Ferrari spokespeople have publicly insisted that Leclerc is receiving priority because of his longer tenure with the team and his deeper familiarity with the car's DNA, spinning the narrative as one of loyalty and continuity. He has been with us for years, he understands the team, he understands the car, they say, presenting the favoritism as a logical and even sentimental choice. But those who have seen the inner workings claim something far darker, that the real objective is to frustrate Hamilton to the point of collapse, to erode his confidence, to push him toward underperformance so that the Scuderia can wield the perfect excuse to terminate his lucrative contract without triggering the crippling financial penalties baked into the agreement. The details leaking out are as unsettling as they are scandalous. Anonymous voices within Maranello whisper of Hamilton's cars mysteriously suffering setup inconsistencies from one session to the next, of suspicious reliability issues that always seem to strike at decisive moments, of pit calls that appear almost designed to compromise his race rather than salvage it. Engineers supposedly loyal to Hamilton have reportedly been sidelined or transferred, leaving his garage staffed with individuals less inclined to fight his corner. In development meetings, whenever Hamilton's team pushes for a new part or a performance tweak, they are told that the resources are unavailable, only for Leclerc's crew to roll out the same upgrades days later. The scale of the alleged sabotage has stunned those within the paddock. Rival teams, though officially silent, are said to be privately outraged. Figures inside Mercedes, Hamilton's former home, reportedly feel vindicated in their belief that Ferrari could never truly adapt to his demands for professionalism and transparency. Red Bull insiders, meanwhile, are said to be monitoring the situation closely, seeing the potential implosion of Ferrari not only as an opportunity to lure Hamilton into their orbit, but also as a chance to destabilize one of their only theoretical challengers. For Hamilton himself, the leaks are a brutal confirmation of suspicions he has quietly carried for months. Observers have noted his increasingly tense body language, his curt radio communications, and his frustration during debriefs. He has at times hinted at feeling unsupported, but always stopped short of directly accusing his own team. Now, with these leaks flooding out, his silence has been interpreted as the quiet fury of a man realizing he has been trapped inside a political war he never agreed to fight. Those close to him claim he feels betrayed not just as a competitor but as a human being, targeted by the very organization that had begged for his signature only months before. The Tifosi themselves are torn apart by the scandal. Some refuse to believe that Ferrari, the team they idolize, would stoop to such manipulation. They cling to the myth of Ferrari's honor and passion, dismissing the reports as gossip designed to destabilize the team. But others, remembering years of botched strategies, favoritism, and political games inside Maranello, find the story disturbingly believable. The fanbase is now split between those demanding transparency and those insisting that loyalty to Ferrari must outweigh any scandal. The consequences of these revelations could be enormous. If the allegations prove true, Ferrari's reputation as a symbol of motorsport tradition could be permanently stained, its credibility torn apart. Sponsors, regulators, and rival teams will demand answers. For Hamilton, this may become the justification he needs to walk away from Ferrari altogether, whether through legal challenge or mutual agreement. Already, speculation is swirling that his management has begun exploring exits, from a sensational reunion with Mercedes to exploratory talks with Aston Martin, who could offer him the backing and loyalty he craves. What was supposed to be one of the greatest stories in Formula One history, the legend of Hamilton seeking one last crown in the colors of Ferrari, now risks being remembered as one of its darkest betrayals. The idea that sabotage, deliberate or otherwise, could take place within the walls of Maranello against their own driver is a revelation so shocking that it threatens not only the team's present but its entire legacy. If true, Ferrari may have just turned what should have been their path to redemption into one of the most notorious scandals the sport has ever known. The whispers spreading through the paddock about deliberate favoritism inside Ferrari have stunned even the most cynical voices in Formula One, people who thought they had already seen every possible political game a team could play. The scale of the alleged sabotage against Lewis Hamilton is breathtaking in its brazenness. Sources close to the team insist that the newest updates, refined aerodynamic wings, subtle suspension adjustments, and incremental improvements to the power unit, are being bolted exclusively onto Charles Leclerc's car. Hamilton's machine, by contrast, is left untouched, still running with older components. Officially, the explanation given is that Ferrari doesn't want to risk changing both cars at once, a rationale repeated like a mantra. But to Hamilton, and to those who've been watching the telemetry closely, that excuse no longer holds any weight. Mechanics brave enough to raise questions reportedly received blunt reminders from Frederic Vasseur himself. Charles has been here for years, he has earned our trust. Hamilton, on the other hand, has been told to concentrate on extracting more out of what he already has. Insiders say Hamilton has grown increasingly suspicious. He's not blind to the small details that separate a winning car from a losing one. Straight-line speed deltas that appear without explanation. Tire degradation that bites harder on his car than on Leclerc's, even when strategy and conditions are identical. Electronic glitches that surface during critical qualifying laps and then vanish without a trace. To the outside world, Ferrari labels these problems random issues, a series of unfortunate coincidences. But to Hamilton, the pattern is too consistent, the timing too damaging. He has lived long enough inside the sport to recognize when something doesn't add up. The man who built his career on clarity, data, and ruthless efficiency at Mercedes now feels as though he is trapped in a political game where invisible hands are tilting the playing field against him. The tension finally erupted into full view after the Hungarian Grand Prix, during a debrief that has already become the stuff of legend in Maranello's hallways. Witnesses describe the atmosphere as suffocating, every pair of eyes locked on Hamilton as he slammed his data tablet onto the table, the sound reverberating around the silent room. His patience had snapped. "You can't expect me to believe this is random anymore, Fred," he spat, his voice tight with anger. "I know exactly what's happening here. You're feeding Charles everything and leaving me with scraps. I didn't come to Ferrari to play second driver, I came here to win." The words cut like knives, shattering the facade of unity Ferrari had tried so hard to maintain. Vasseur, visibly furious, didn't back down. His response was sharp, defensive, and filled with the weight of someone trying to protect his authority in front of a room that had suddenly gone ice cold. "Lewis, you signed up to join this team, not to run it," he shot back, his voice rising. "You think you can walk in after half a season and dictate how we manage resources? Charles is our future, he's been loyal, he's the driver we are building around. You are not bigger than Ferrari." His words hung in the air, final and brutal, leaving the engineers and staff frozen in place. Hamilton's expression, witnesses say, shifted from fury to cold resignation. Without another word, he pushed back his chair and walked out, ignoring Vasseur's glare, ignoring the stunned faces around him. He didn't shake hands, didn't offer a conciliatory gesture. As he reached the doorway, he muttered under his breath, loud enough for those closest to hear, "This is exactly why you haven't won a championship in nearly 20 years." The sentence was a dagger, a condemnation that no one in that room would forget. From that moment, the fracture was no longer hidden. Ferrari's glossy exterior had been ripped open, exposing a battlefield where one of the greatest drivers in history felt deliberately sidelined, and a team principal dug in his heels to defend the driver he saw as the cornerstone of Ferrari's future. For Hamilton, the betrayal cut deep. For Ferrari, The confrontation revealed the scale of the crisis. The partnership once painted as a revival of the Scuderia had descended into suspicion, favoritism, and open war. And now, everyone inside Formula One is watching to see how long the alliance can survive before it implodes entirely. What happened behind closed doors at Ferrari has taken on a life of its own, turning whispers into full-blown drama that the entire paddock is now dissecting with obsessive fascination. The tension that had been simmering for months between Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc finally erupted, no longer contained by carefully managed press conferences or polite soundbites. Insiders describe a confrontation in the Ferrari motorhome that left even seasoned team staff stunned. Hamilton, visibly agitated, cornered Leclerc in private, his voice sharp with accusation. He told him point-blank that he was driving with upgrades Hamilton hadn't even been permitted to test, accusing him of knowingly enjoying preferential treatment while pretending otherwise. It wasn't just frustration, it was the raw anger of a champion who felt betrayed not only by his team but by the teammate he believed should have acknowledged the imbalance. Leclerc, normally measured and diplomatic, did not back down. For once, he abandoned the carefully crafted public persona and met Hamilton's fury head-on. His response, according to those present, was cutting. He reminded Hamilton that he had spent years carrying Ferrari through dark seasons, years of reliability failures, political infighting and unbearable pressure, yet he had never complained or sought excuses. If Ferrari wanted to put their faith in him now, it was, in his eyes, a reward for loyalty and endurance. "I've earned my place here," he said firmly, refusing to soften the message. "If you can't deliver with what you have, that's on you, not me." The words hit like a hammer, and from that moment the air between them froze. Team insiders now describe the relationship as fractured beyond repair. Neither driver acknowledges the other in the garage. There are no handshakes, no small exchanges of respect, only silence. Engineers have been forced to juggle tasks to keep the two from overlapping in meetings, desperately working to prevent their hostility from spilling onto the public stage, where even the faintest spark could ignite headlines that would engulf the entire organization. For Hamilton, that exchange marked more than just a personal conflict. It crystallized the sense of betrayal he had been carrying, solidifying the idea that his time in red had always been set up for disappointment. The realization that he was fighting not only rivals on track but also politics within his own team pushed him closer to a decision he had been resisting for months. The thought of returning to Mercedes, of closing his career where he had become a legend, had lingered in the background as a tempting fantasy. After Spa and the clash with Leclerc, it became a genuine option, an escape route from a project that had stripped him of dignity and respect. That temptation soon became a tangible negotiation when Hamilton and Toto Wolff met in Monaco under a veil of secrecy. The meeting was orchestrated like a clandestine operation. Hamilton arrived late at night, avoiding cameras and curious eyes, slipping quietly into the hotel suite overlooking the harbor where Wolff was waiting. Those who know their relationship describe the encounter as emotional yet pragmatic, a blend of nostalgia and hard realism. They spoke for hours, revisiting memories of the years when Mercedes dominated the sport, when Hamilton's victories seemed inevitable, and when trust between them was absolute. Wolff, ever the strategist, did not waste time with sentimentality. According to someone close to the conversation, he laid out the situation in clear terms. "Lewis," he told him, "you know what's happening at Ferrari. You'll never be treated as an equal there. If you want to end your career with dignity, if you want one more shot at victories, you know where you belong. Mercedes built you into what you are, and Mercedes will always open the door for you." The words struck Hamilton deeply. In that room overlooking the glittering lights of Monaco's harbor, he was reminded of what he once had, the security of a team built around him, the joy of machinery that matched his talent, the legacy of dominance that defined a generation. He weighed Wolff's offer against the reality of life at Ferrari, a life defined by broken promises, unequal treatment, and a teammate who no longer hid his contempt. The decision looming over him is monumental: stay and fight a losing battle in red, or return to the team where he became a legend and attempt one last resurgence before the curtain falls. Around the paddock, the speculation has already consumed every conversation. Could Mercedes truly bring him back when George Russell has been positioned as their future? Would Russell accept sharing the stage again with a driver whose aura still commands global attention? How would Antonelli's carefully managed rise be affected if Hamilton's return delayed his debut? And what of Ferrari? Would they look back with regret, realizing too late that casting aside a 7-time champion and fueling a civil war between teammates was the greatest miscalculation of all? The saga has become more than a story of contracts and results. It is the theater of Formula One at its most intoxicating. Betrayal, pride, ambition, and legacy are colliding in real time, with Hamilton at the center of it all. The image of him walking out of Maranello in silence, only to be seen hours later locked in deep discussion with Wolff in Monaco, has already taken on a mythical quality. Whether he ultimately returns to silver or chooses another path, the drama has gripped the world, and every whisper, every rumor, every leaked detail adds another layer to a narrative that could define not only the twilight of Hamilton's career but the very future of Formula One. Hamilton's disillusionment inside Ferrari has been the worst-kept secret in the paddock, but the depth of his frustration is only now beginning to surface. According to individuals close to the situation, the seven-time champion confided in Toto Wolff during a tense, almost cathartic conversation. Visibly shaken, Hamilton is said to have confessed that life inside Maranello had become unbearable. He allegedly told Wolff that he felt stripped of dignity, describing moments where the team would remove crucial components from his car without explanation, leaving him to look foolish in front of his own engineers. The atmosphere, he suggested, was suffocating. He admitted he could no longer remain in an environment where he felt systematically dismantled, emotionally and professionally. With his voice breaking, he is rumored to have said, "They're destroying me from the inside, Toto. They're stripping parts off my car, they're humiliating me in front of the engineers, they're trying to break me. I can't stay there if they won't fight for me. I need a way out." Wolff, according to those familiar with the meeting, leaned in and spoke with the quiet intensity of someone who knows exactly how to play the long game. He allegedly responded, "Then let's make it happen. We can bring you back for $20 million a year. It won't be the record salary Ferrari promised, but it will be fair, it will be clean, and most of all, it will be real. You'll have a car you can trust, people you can trust, and a project aimed at 2026 where you can leave the sport on your terms, not theirs." The words carried a weight that seemed to lift the tension from Hamilton's shoulders. Insiders describe a draft agreement slid across the table by Wolff, one that represented far more than numbers on paper. The structure, sources claim, would revolve around a 2-year deal, not just with immediate financial rewards but with a blueprint for Hamilton's post-racing future embedded within. The proposal included ambassadorial commitments, the chance to remain tied to Mercedes even after stepping away from the cockpit, and a symbolic reassurance that his name would forever remain woven into the identity of the Silver Arrows. The $20 million salary figure may not rival the enormous paycheck Ferrari had dangled before him, but it symbolized intent, a serious signal that Mercedes was not looking for a token comeback. They were building a narrative around Hamilton once again. The suggested lineup placed Hamilton back alongside George Russell, reviving a partnership that had always carried the air of unfinished business. Russell, ambitious and eager to inherit the mantle of team leader, would continue developing into Mercedes' long-term spearhead, while Hamilton would act as both competitor and mentor, bridging the present to the future. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Hamilton would help keep Mercedes competitive now, pushing for victories and podiums, while Russell and Antonelli formed the backbone of the team's longer-term dynasty. Those present at the meeting claimed the emotional impact on Hamilton was immediate and visible. When Wolff laid out the draft contract, the veteran's eyes reportedly glistened with recognition and relief. The room fell silent for a moment as Hamilton, once so unshakable, allowed himself to admit what he had felt all along, that Mercedes was his true home. "This feels like coming home," he whispered, the words carrying the weight of years of triumph, heartbreak, and unfinished business. The implications of such a move would reverberate throughout Formula One. Ferrari, already under siege from fans and sponsors enraged by the breakdown of the Hamilton project, would face further humiliation. The Tifosi, who had dreamed of Hamilton emulating Schumacher and leading Ferrari back to glory, would see their hopes collapse in spectacular fashion, replaced by a bitter narrative of betrayal. Corporate partners, who had poured millions into the Hamilton in red fairy tale, would demand explanations and possibly reconsider their commitments. Social media outrage, already boiling, would erupt into a storm unlike anything Ferrari has faced in years. Meanwhile, Mercedes would stride back into the spotlight not as a team scrambling for answers, but as an organization reclaiming its identity. The symbolism of Hamilton's return, less about chasing championships and more about restoring pride and cementing legacy, would be undeniable. For the staff in Brackley, the presence of the man who defined their era of dominance would reignite ambition and silence doubts. For the fans, it would transform the narrative from decline to resurrection. For Hamilton, it would be the ultimate act of defiance, a refusal to let his story be written by others. The whispers around this clandestine meeting have already begun reshaping how the sport views the months ahead. If confirmed, Hamilton's return to Mercedes would be remembered as one of the most extraordinary twists in Formula One history. A champion cast aside by Ferrari only to re-emerge with a team that made him a legend, ready to close the chapter on his own terms, with dignity, pride, and one final chance to etch his name into eternity. For Ferrari, the scandal unleashed by the alleged sabotage has spiraled into a crisis that threatens not only their current campaign but their very standing in the history of the sport. What began as a whisper in the paddock has become a roar across every channel of discourse, a tidal wave of outrage that Maranello seems powerless to contain. Official press releases insist that the allocation of development resources has been handled with a clear strategic vision, that every technical adjustment and budget decision has been aligned with maximizing the team's overall performance. Yet the carefully worded statements sound hollow, unconvincing, rehearsed. The fans do not believe it. Every justification is dismissed as damage control. On social media, anger spreads like wildfire. Accusations of favoritism, betrayal, and manipulation dominate timelines. Memes, posts, and heated threads transform Ferrari from a revered name into a trending subject of ridicule. Hashtags such as #SabotageGate and #JusticeForHamilton explode across platforms, and the fury is no longer contained to Hamilton's fanbase. Even neutral observers, people who once admired Ferrari regardless of their allegiance, are questioning the ethics of the Scuderia. The collapse of trust is visible, palpable, and devastating. What amplifies the storm further is the chorus of voices from the sport's past. Former drivers, veterans of Ferrari's highs and lows, are stepping forward, some cautiously, others with outright condemnation. Several insist that if the accusations prove true, if Hamilton was deliberately undermined from within, then Ferrari's credibility could be permanently shattered. For decades, Ferrari has been more than a team, it has been an institution, the heart of Formula One's mythology. To tarnish that aura through internal sabotage is not simply a scandal, it is heresy. One respected ex-champion declared during an interview that Ferrari may recover victories, but they may never recover honor if this is true. Words like these sting deeply, and the echo reverberates across every corner of the motorsport world. Through it all, Hamilton's composure in public has been remarkable. He smiles for cameras, answers questions with calculated calm, and refuses to fan the flames directly. But behind that controlled exterior lies a truth impossible to conceal. He has seen the numbers. He has reviewed the data. He has lived through weekends where inexplicable decisions stripped him of competitiveness. The man who has spent his career mastering adversity knows when patterns cross the line from unfortunate coincidence into deliberate sabotage. He is no longer just a driver dealing with a difficult season. He is a champion staring down betrayal from within the walls of the most storied team in motorsport. Meanwhile, whispers of negotiations with Toto Wolff intensify. Reports emerge of late-night meetings, of private phone calls, of back-channel discussions where Mercedes quietly explores what a reunion might look like. The symbolism of such a move would be extraordinary. Hamilton, betrayed by Ferrari, returning to the team that once defined his glory, rising from the ashes of one of the most humiliating chapters of his career to chase victory once more in silver. The idea alone has electrified fans and terrified rivals. If Hamilton does go back, it would not just be a comeback, it would be a declaration of resilience, a reminder to the entire sport that greatness cannot be destroyed by politics or sabotage. The summer break, once expected to be a lull in the season, has mutated into a spectacle unlike anything seen in recent years. Instead of quiet analysis and rest, the headlines are filled with allegations of betrayal, stories of secret dealings, and speculation about a shakeup that could redefine the competitive order of Formula One. The mood is feverish, as if the sport itself is holding its breath, waiting for the next revelation, the next leak, the next shocking confirmation of what so many already suspect. And in the middle of this maelstrom stands Lewis Hamilton, unshaken, unbroken, focused. He has endured too much in his career to be destroyed by one scandal, no matter how damaging. For every attempt to undermine him, he has responded with resilience, with performances that have silenced critics time and again. Now the narrative forming around him feels like destiny itself, the greatest driver of his generation, sabotaged by the most famous team in history, preparing to rise once again. The stage is set for a return that would not simply be another chapter, but perhaps the most sensational comeback the sport has ever seen.